welcome to Week Market View. I'm back with Bill this week. So obviously we've still got this US debt ceiling rumbling on, and as the standoff continues, do you see a default now, or do you think that we're going to see a resolve?
I think we'll see change 15, paragraph 4, section 8, whatever. I mean, I think that now is, it sounds like we'll sort of postpone it, whether next month or January, February, March. But it does look like something will be resolved before midnight next Thursday. And I mean, where we first started to see reality come in was last week, I guess probably no, this week, early this week, when we saw the 30-day Treasury bill all of a sudden, you know, up to like 0.40. I know that doesn't sound like much, but remember, it was a negative yield just 6 months ago. So at least the Treasury market is saying, hey, we are concerned that there could be a default. And I do know, excuse me, that October and November Treasury bills are not being taken on repos. For the simple fact is, if you say take a November something or other Treasury bill, and there is a default, well, who pays for the default? Okay, so.
And some are saying that maybe the markets, there doesn't seem to be too much reaction to it, or maybe as dramatic as people sort of expect when you hear these words default in the US.
Yes.
Do you think the markets are taking this seriously, or do you just generally believe that there's no
Well,
chance?
I think we're going back to the simple fact is it's never happened. Okay, so something will happen to not solve the problem now, but to avoid a default. But I mean, I think one of the things, and excuse me, I was asked this question earlier today in reference to, you know, my answer was, we got the minutes from the Fed last night, and there was still somewhat confusion about, you know, how well the U.S. recovery is progressing. Well, now, if the Fed is confused and they have to data minute by minute by minute on how the U.S. economy is progressing, I'm sure you saw, you know, the jobless claims today.
Yes,
well, you know, like plus 66,000. Well, how many, you know, could we see a major distortion on jobless claims? Because I don't know how, quote, furloughed U.S. government employees, are they allowed to claim benefits, et cetera, but it did say that it was a plus 66,000 increase. And I have to say, some of that has to go down. It can't be the California IT problem continuing to grow here. So I don't know. So if the Fed was having trouble getting an idea how the U.S. economy was progressing, I mean, what do we do now? I mean, who knows when we'll get any kind of data?
Yeah. And so, talking of the Fed as well, we saw the appointment of, or the nomination of Janet Yellen yesterday, sort of maybe trying to bring some calm to the market. But when you see her coming in, obviously now we've had the partial government shutdown. There's even more concerns over this tapering being put off. And Janet Yellen coming in, she seems quite concerned with like a long rate of unemployment and full employment. Do you think that now that we're sort of sure it's going to be much, do you think that we will see an even more delay of tapering?
Yeah, I think we will. I mean, when we talked a couple of weeks ago, I was looking for SEP tapering.
Yeah.
Then I figured we'd get OCT tapering. Now I have to feel, you know, she you know, I'm expecting her to be nominated. She would take over on midnight on the 31st of January of next year. Therefore, you know, my early call now is I don't see any change in tapering probably until March, maybe.
Yeah, I would agree. In the UK this week, we have been seeing better data, and we obviously saw a bit of weakness in industrial production, manufacturing production, but we did see the IMF come out with their report and actually sort of quite positive on the UK. I was just wondering what your sort of view is on the UK economy. Do you believe in this recovery?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's recovering, but then again, where I've had a very nice wake-up call now. I've been living in Wiltshire now for the last 4 years. Now, just on a silly instance, okay, I was leaving our local cooperative, you know, grocery store on Saturday, I think, and, you know, I had my trolley, and there was one lady who was fumbling in her pocketbook, so I gave her my trolley, and she said, well, you know, but that's a pound. Can I give you a pound? Now, I know that may sound silly, but I mean, if you've got people away from London, away from the major cities, concerned about a pound, you know, that can be compounded. And yesterday I was you know, talking to a friend about whose grandfather's moved into the next village. Well, he's talking about, you know, in Wiltshire, you know, high prices and stuff, and how come in our village we don't have an Aldi or a Lidl, we only have a Waitrose, okay? So, again, we're talking about pennies, but this is extremely important, okay? These pennies, and as we've seen right now, even inflation coming down, we still have the widest discrepancy on real earnings versus inflation in more than 40 years.
also this morning announced from the ECB, they announced a bilateral currency swap with the PBOC, so with China. Do you think that this sort of shows China sort of expanding? Obviously, they're trying to get the yuan out there a bit more, selling their own debt, less focus on the US dollar, maybe, obviously moving away from that, tied in with the concerns that we're seeing now on the default. Do you think China's sort of showing a bit more dominance?
Well, I think it's a situation where, hopefully nobody from the ECB is listening, they're about 2 or 3 years behind. The simple fact is you've had, swap lines, and the swap lines, China has been contributing with, like, the Bank of Japan and the ASEANs, okay, for like 3+ years. There's been a major line between the People's Bank of China and the Fed, okay? It's a situation where all of a sudden maybe somebody nudges, hey, Super Mario, China, they're big players. No, it's just a continuation of the situation. And again, I have to go back to the previous 10-year administration in China when they took over. Basically, Hu Flung, whatever his name is, Jing Bao or whatever, basically said, we're one country, with 2 currencies, okay? Meaning the Hong Kong dollar and the Chinese yuan. Yes, it will go from being a non-deliverable forward to a regular currency, but I'm not a member of the school that feels it's going to be this year, next year, the next 4 or 5 years. I can't see that changing. I think there are other things going on in China rather than a convertible currency, because they've never had any problem, okay? Yeah. And all you've got to do is look back to in the old days, okay, with Taiwan. Taiwan had a booming economy, okay, but almost 80% of their exports went to one country, not to mainland China, went to Hong Kong, and Taiwan to Hong Kong, Hong Kong to Beijing. So it's been that duplicity. We don't recognize who you are, but I'll take your money type situation. No, I don't put any. It was one of those things where it's got to happen. The Chinese are players, but the simple fact is, no, I can't see, China not being relegated to the dollar. So the simple fact is, they are the largest owner of U.S. Treasuries.
And then they've also been sort of warning or trying to express their concerns to the US now because they hold so much US debt.
Exactly.
Do you see that if it carries on maybe throughout this week or into next week, do you think we'll start to see maybe China and Japan, who hold a lot of debt as well, selling that off? Or
no, of course not. but it's a situation, we were talking about this before we started, where I get irritated is in what we've had now in the last probably 20 years is really a major division between the Republicans and the Democrats. In the old days, I'm talking like the Clinton administration 20 years ago, you sort of had a crossover. Now it's not. It's black and white is white. And I think what I'm totally irritated is so many of these tea parties, they keep talking about, well, we're trying to help our local citizens. Well, you've got to realize you can't think local anymore, okay? Yeah. And whether it be in Iowa, whether it be in London, the simple fact is that probably so many of the people that may be working in local companies, they're selling Chinese goods, or they're selling Mexican this, that, or the other. So the U.S. is no different, than here in the U.K. Most of the industry is overseas, okay? Yeah. And so I see a situation where probably not, we're not going to get the backlash against the Republican Party now that we got against the Republican Party during the Clinton administration, okay? But I could see, no matter what happens, this is going to have a negative effect on the Tea Party. It's going to have a negative effect on so many of the Americans that think with blinders.
We'll see how it all pans out into next week.
Well, if we can come back, if we're still in existence.